Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. Thrilled to be here with you guys. I hope that you're staying safe. I know the weather has been pretty wild across our nation. My heart goes out to all of the people that have suffered throughout the state of Texas, also New Mexico, North Carolina, Iowa, and now Florida and beyond. My prayer and heart goes out to all of us, and I pray that you guys can stay safe. With that said, I'm going to transition. The Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on the X Factor EDU network, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and you can also find it on Spotify. You can also find this podcast on my main social media outlets. So Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram is Indie238, YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. Also, check out the website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, and to schedule me for a speaking and coaching event. Please reach out to me directly via DM or Messenger. Come to me directly if you're wanting to work with me, and I will service you guys as soon as possible. We'll make something work. With that said, I also want to make sure that you guys are aware of my whereabouts. I do my best to service you guys across the nation. I've got some upcoming events. LA, looking forward to some trainings and different things there. I'm looking forward to NCSM and NCTM conferences, also the Making Math Moments conference, and the other virtual conferences that I have lined up online. I'm very excited and grateful to be a part. I know all of these are tentative. I've learned that, unfortunately, through, different things that we experience in life. And thank you to all those that, had me, invited me out to camp. Thank you to Peter. Thank you to all of you guys from the bottom of my heart. I know you guys had a blast, but, things happen. So I wish you all love and success. And I love seeing the updates and how good of a time you guys all had. I want to also remind you guys of the Grit Mini Workshop for the Grassroots Workshops website. Thanks, Robert, for that. Also, check out the Grit Academy. If you are looking for a place for your students to go to receive tutoring and some supports, you can send them our way at the Grit Academy. Just send me an email and we'll get you guys set up as well. And so with that said, this podcast, the objective is if you're trying to close the achievement gap and you're having classroom management issues or your students just aren't motivated to do the work, then join me on this podcast, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast, and we'll talk over some things. And so I want to say that since, we are in summer and we are, preparing for the new year, I already got notices today about open house and back to school. I'm seeing backpacks at Walmart and other stores, and it's already happening, guys. It's like time is flying. So in about a month, our students will be right back in school. So with that said, I do want to talk today about gritty reflections. So before we enter into a new year, let's reflect on things that went well, things that we want to change for next year. Whether that's, different practices. Maybe you want to implement newer practices. Maybe there's a practice you started that was great that you want to just kind of prolong and extend it because it's effective. Kudos to all the schools that, you got your school grades back, by the way, and, you earned A's and B's and things like that. I'm very proud of schools, even schools here in the Tampa Bay area. They're doing a great job. But long story short, I just want to shout out all of you principals and you teachers, everyone, parents, community members. It takes a village to make those things happen. So kudos to you guys. But let's see, if we can continue to keep that momentum going. It's going to be through reflecting and seeing what were our best practices and what can we keep, what do we need to maybe transition. So I have some tips that I want to share with you guys. Okay. So tips for staying gritty with your reflections. Okay. First things first, I would recommend to write down a vision and focus on it. Okay. What are you aiming to achieve for the year, for 6 months, whatever? Okay. Then I would recommend to establish a goal. Okay, what is that goal? Like, so you might have a whole school-wide vision or a vision for your classroom, but then what are your particular goals? Is it data centered? Is it community centered? What is your goal? Is it professional development centered? Cultural centered? And then 3, focus on journaling your progress. And I am speaking from experience here, and I'll probably share a little bit of a story. I had a situation of some students that, our relationship wasn't where it needed to be. Okay. When you teach students, the thing I love about education is its emotional intelligence, and it really speaks the truth about who you are, your traditions, your beliefs, and how well you're able to manage, connecting with others, whether it's other culture groups, other genders, other socioeconomic, statuses or whatnot. And you learn a lot about yourself. And so I had some situations where I had students who, for a lack of words, we were just oil and water. And it was tough, right? But I had to come up with a plan. Okay. You can't just kick a kid out because you don't get along with the child, right? I think that's weak. If you kick every kid out, I mean, what are you doing, right? So I had to come up with a plan. So I decided to do some reflections. And so I had a journal. Every day I would journal. Hey, student A would come in and, he would sit here, blah, blah, blah. And, he did this much of his work. He did 20% today. He did 15% the next day. He did 35% the next day. So, whatever his progress was, I would journal that. And then I'd say, okay, our conversation started with like short 1 sentences. If a student doesn't like you, or, just in general, if someone doesn't care for you, they usually give you like a 1 sentence kind of thing, like, right? Like short, sweet, brief, no interaction, no warmth, cold. And so I had a situation where that was the case for a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months, but then we got through it. The thing I love about this is when I looked back at the end and saw my growth as a leader and saw the student beginning to evolve and open up. See, students, they're not adults. You can't expect them to come to you with, emotional intelligence and maturity and all this. We have to train them. We have to teach them. We have to model for them. And so, long story short, I remember looking back at that journal and I loved it. I was very grateful that I was able to have that experience with that student and that we ended very well at the end of that school year. It was just personal growth for me. Not everybody's going to get you. You're not everybody's flavor, right? So sometimes you got to learn how to adjust and, acclimate and accommodate where needed so that you can get the job done and you can help and be effective. The thing about teaching, and the thing I love about, the one thing I do like about testing and test scores is that test scores, they tell the truth also about the teacher and that teacher's academic ability to help students succeed, their ability and their competency as an educator to really get the job done. And so I would always take that very personal, student scores. So when students are coming to me with, level 1s, if they ended the school year with a level 1, and I'm really teaching, there's a problem, and it's not always the student. I would have to point inward, and I'd have to own that, and so I think journaling is a wonderful way that we can lift up even test scores and proficiency levels of students and professional development and maturing and competency and the ability of the mastery of educators and their ability to master the skill, the art of teaching. So journaling your progress is key. I do have a grit journal, by the way. I have a grit, not the grit workbook. It's separate from that. And it's like a grit planner where you guys can go in. And if you want more information, let me know. I've got that for you. Also, the next thing I would recommend is holding yourself accountable. Not just through your own journaling, but through another person, a colleague, an administrator, a parent, community member, students. I loved giving my students surveys. Some people, they're not ready for that, because, their feelings are going to be hurt and they might cry. But how else do you expect to grow if you can't hear the truth? And I would always have my students give anonymous surveys. I would give an anonymous survey and ask questions. How is my teaching? What do I do that you like? What do I do or say that you don't like? How do you feel about favoritism? How do you feel about my ability to connect with your culture? How do you feel about my ability to teach the math? How do you feel about your ability to understand the math in my class? Like, I would do so many different questions, and then I would be there for it. They would turn in their anonymous surveys, and I would let them do this as I was maybe like, it would be like a little mini quiz, like, a little exit ticket for them. And as they're doing that, maybe I'm like doing a little email or something really quickly on the computer, and they would turn it in. I would not look. I would not try to memorize their handwritings or anything. I made them fold it. I put it in a shoebox. And then, when the bell rang, I would check it either at the end of that day or maybe the following day during lunch or whatever. And I would sit there and I would eat that. I would own everything they said, the good, bad, and ugly, and it was very interesting to see. Not everybody's going to think, you're fabulous. And not everybody's going to think your ability to teach and master your craft is fabulous. And you have to accept that. But you also have to reflect and say, okay, this is where they say I'm at. This is the areas of improvement. And I'm willing to accept that where I'm at and start making progress towards gains, in my own professional development. So I want to encourage you guys with that. And then, of course, celebrate your milestones. As you see things are getting better, celebrate those milestones. Don't be so hard on yourself. Okay. All right. Now, let's continue. I now want to share my screen, and I want to talk with you about some things that I found online. So I found this from Northern Illinois University. It's the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning. They're talking about reflective journals and learning logs, and they're basically spitting out what they found. So reflective journals are records of students' learning experiences. Students typically are asked by their instructors to record learning-related incidences, sometimes during the learning progress, but more often just after they occur. So entries in journals and learning logs can be prompted by questions about the course content, assignments, exam students' own ideas, or students' thought processes about what happened in a particular class period, just like I had just mentioned, right, in my example. Journals and learning logs are then submitted to the instructor for feedback. Excellent. Both paper-based and online journal logs can be turned in before or after each class period. So they're pretty much saying here that this is some proof in the pudding. It says journal logs have been used in exploratory writing activities, but can also benefit the student beyond learning how to write. As with any instructional or learning activity, selecting to use reflective journals or learning logs as a part of the course should fit your teaching style and also connect with the course learning logs objective. Okay, that's a Bean. I think that's like Bean and Tinto. I think it's John Bean. I think that they're talking about. And it says, because it takes time for students to write in their reflective journals and learning logs, so too, it will take time for you to read and respond. Right. So they're coming down here. It says, journals often focus subjectively on personal experiences. This is why it's so important, because we're not the only voice in the classroom. We need to understand how our students are feeling. Okay, so it says also their reactions and reflections, while learning logs are more documentary records, okay, of students' work process. So they're trying to distinguish the difference between both. So a journal is to reflect on your experience. A learning log is to reflect on the work. So some teachers are like, oh, well, I had the kids, talk about the work they did. That's cool. But if you're wanting to know about them and their experience and how effective you are with getting that material to them, a journal is the best way to go. Okay. And so it says here, however, there is evidence that the art of reflection can help boost students' critical thinking skills, encourage students to think about their own thinking. I love that. Metacognition, one of my favorite words, and help students to prepare for assignments and examinations. So all these wonderful people here. And it talks about how it's a type of reflection. You could talk about numerous viewpoints and perspectives. There's 6 types of reflections that they're going to talk about that you can get from a learning log or from a journal, excuse me. So you have a gritty journal, observations, questions, speculations, self-awareness. Love that, especially if a student is having a hard time with the traditional expectations of behavior in your class. This is a wonderful way to help them. Integration of theory and ideas. I love that because that's going to bleed into conceptual understanding, really taking it beyond just, the basic productive, struggle phase. All right. And then, of course, critiquing. I love that because if a student could really reflect on their experience, that lets you know how much they really know, right? This is a great thing to use too, by the way. Side note, if you think a student is cheating on a quiz or test or even homework, and maybe you can't quite pinpoint it, have them write about it. Have them write about what they did, what it was like, and have them reflect on maybe how it's all connected. How they had to connect, whether it was like solving something like systems of equations or something like that. How they had to connect the dots with finding X, finding Y, finding the intersection, and like whatever process of elimination, like whatever it is. Have them reflect and write out for you, and then you will be able to understand whether that student was like cheating or not by how they're reflecting. So that's a good way. Instead of coming at them like a gotcha or like a cop, come at them with, I want you to elaborate. I think you did a wonderful job. Can you elaborate for me? Just write down what you did, and then you can even write the problem down separate and then let them explain it to you. And maybe a student might be a little bit insecure about their ability to write and express. So be open to that, to let them, express orally as well, like what took place. I digress. All right. So it's talking about this. So when you're doing this reflective journal or learning logs, you're going to write and record. So describe the situation, who was involved, what did they have to do with the situation. So that's good. Like if you're doing an actual journal. Okay. And then look at another part here. Conclusion, what can be concluded in general and specific sense. So this is great if you want to take that and that part of this and just kind of go over that with the student. That's a great exit ticket. And if you are trying to find ways to connect with your students at the beginning of the year, I would definitely use this within the first 2 weeks of school. I would be using something like this for sure. Okay, so that was pretty cool. You can find that from Northern Illinois University. Give them their flowers. I was also able to find this. This is about mindfulness. Okay, 6 tips for making reflection a consistent habit. Okay, this is by Edutopia. And this is by Rachel Danae Poff. Give her flowers. Okay, so John Dewey says, we do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. Love it. This is why, I'm going to say something. This is why it is imperative to have some type of culturally responsive learning embedded in the instruction, because how can I reflect if there's no point of reference, right? If you're telling me, for instance, you're talking to me about catching a plane, right? And you're trying to explain, okay, when you're catching a plane, I want you to imagine, you've got to find the gate, you've got to bag, do the TSA pre-check or whatever you do, you got to find your seat. You've got to, like say you're doing all this stuff, you're saying all this stuff, and a student has never been on a plane. Okay. And then you're then giving them problems, different word problems that are more in depth. And you're trying to have them make connections. Well, guess what? The problem is there's a disconnect because they cannot see it in their mind. They cannot connect because there's no point of reference. They don't have anything personal that they can grab from. Like I remember doing problems in school where they were talking about skiing. I'm in Florida. Skiing where? Or shoveling snow? What are you talking about, right? So we have to do our best to have a point of reference. Now, you might say, I don't know. Well, guess what? Our wonderful friend, there's TeacherTube, there's YouTube, all this stuff. Go there, find some clean content that goes with your lesson, approved by your school district, whatever, and see if you can play clips of that so that kids can have a point of reference. Whatever you're talking about, a yacht. I remember that. I didn't know what a yacht was, for several years. I had no idea. So these are different things that we have to do if we're trying to connect with our students. Okay. So yeah, so with that said, I'm going to now share my screen again, and we're going to continue that article that I just found for us. So these are 6 tips that they are sharing. Okay. Ongoing reflection is essential for growth as educators. So they're talking not just about students, also about educators. So it's saying consistent reflection on our experiences and setting clear and meaningful goals for our own progress as teachers should be a part of each day. Now, finding time to engage in regular personal reflection can be a challenge, right? Such as demands such as lesson planning. I know, the lesson planning is everything, right? It says through reflection, we focus on continued development of essential SEL skills such as self-awareness and self-management, and also focus on decision-making in our practice. Okay. So some questions to think about. It says, think about these questions. What went well today in our lesson? This is great, right? You can make this out of a template. What is something that could have gone better, right? Okay, and it keeps going. So now let's look at the tips. Tip number 1, establish a dedicated reflection time. Is it during lunch? Is it after school? Like, is it the weekend? What is it? I don't think you should wait that late. But anyway, and they say, I've been using Focusable this year. Okay, so I guess it's it's a fitness tracking app for your mind that helps you to pause in the day and reflect. Oh, I like that. Okay. I love that. Guys, we need those moments where we pause and reflect and meditate. You got to take care of yourself. Okay. If your mind is buzzing a million miles a minute, you're going to go bonkers, so we've got to take care of ourselves. Now, next thing here, it says journaling and reflection tools. So capturing your thoughts throughout the day is important, right? Consider getting a reflection journal. I've got one for you. Or writing space to make notes of your thoughts and observations on a daily basis. Okay, journals do not have to be anything fancy. You can use a notebook or even a digital option. I have that too. Okay, and then it says, and the gritty journal that I have is really cool because you get to reflect on how you've been gritty as well throughout the week, and it's just really cool. And it goes right along with the grit calendar as well. All right, next, quick class closers. Try to take a few minutes at the end of the class or lesson to reflect. This goes great with one of my grit games. So I have a grit game called Grit Circle. You can do a reflection during Grit Circle, and it can be like an exit ticket. It's a wonderful way to build a relationship with your students and have them to reflect. Okay, so it says help students as they leave class to find out what helps and what they need for the next class. Okay, voice memos and podcasts, right? Okay, that's cool. Professional learning communities, PLCs, right? So you can share with your colleagues. Make sure you've got colleagues that you can trust. That sharing your experiences and discussing ways to improve your practice. You can use things like Slack. Slack's starting to pick up slack. It's starting to become very relevant. And I like this one, number 6. Avoid isolation. You're not in this by yourself. Okay, don't feel like it's a bunch of sharks in the water and they're out to get you. Like, open up. Self-care is important. You can try to take time to take a walk during the day. Be intentional about checking up with colleagues and exchanging ideas. Grabbing that cup of coffee with a teacher friend, right, once a week is wonderful. So in conclusion, they're saying here, taking time to reflect on your teaching practices is a powerful way to grow and improve as a teacher. I really hope that this is great. You can find them online now. I really hope that as educators, as principals, as parents, as community leaders, stakeholders, that we've taken some time to reflect over the school year. I think that a wonderful way to start, if you're an administrator, you're like, well, how do I do this? I would say reflecting even on, your school grades and things like that. How did you guys do? And celebrating your milestones and your success, and then circling those areas of focus in your data set. Like, maybe you didn't score where you wanted, or maybe you're just, neck and neck with the district, or, get together and find out what are your areas of focus. And it might not be academic data. Maybe it's community data, right? Maybe there's some other issues, district data, that you can really hone in on and find some, improvement and some growth. So thanks for letting me share that. Now I want to share one more thing with you guys. Pretty cool. It's he's talking about what is self-reflection and how to practice it.
What is self reflection? Self reflection is defined as meditation or serious thought about one's character, actions, and motives. It's about taking a step back and reflecting on your life, behavior, and beliefs. Okay, that's all good, but why do I need it? Have some patience, man. Before I tell you the importance of self reflection, let me tell you what happens when you don't reflect.
Okay, so that's kind of cool. He's going to talk about what happens when you don't reflect. So let's spend a little bit more
on what's working and what's not, to identify what to keep and what needs to change. You may have heard the saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, but expecting different results. Yet, that is what so many of us do.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. I really like this guy's hair in this clip, by the way. I think it's really sweet. But anyway, so I'm going to skip a little bit more. And let's go to more.
Allows you to respond, not react. Have you ever said or done something in the moment that you wish you could take back?
Don't we all?
When you react, you're not thinking about the potential ramifications of your actions.
So, you know, that's so imperative that is one thing that having that self-reflection does for us is it helps us to avoid, certain fires that and frying every fish. I remember, so I don't know who told me this. They said you can't fry every fish, that you come along, that comes along in your little ocean of life. You can't fight every battle, pick your battles wisely. So with that said, that was some pretty cool things. I'm not going to continue that for the sake of respecting them and not wanting any copyright issues. I that's a pet peeve. With that said, guys, I hope you learned something today as we talked about gritty reflections. Again, thank you so much for joining me on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast. If you're really trying to close the achievement gap, you're having classroom management issues, just join me anytime on this podcast. We will be featuring it on the X Factor EDU network hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph. You can also find it on Spotify. Follow me on social media, please. Here are my handles there. You've got Miss India White is for Facebook. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube is India White123. Please like and subscribe. TikTok is Dr. India White. And Blue Sky is Dr. India Grit. And so with that said, guys, one more thing. Check out the website, www.india-white.com for any books, blogs, or to schedule me for a speaking and coaching event. Get on my calendar. Let me get on your calendar. Let's do this. Thank you so much for those that have already reached out to me for future workshops, conferences, and things like that. I'm super excited. I can't wait to see you guys. And so with that said, I will see you guys later. Some of you, I'll be seeing you sooner than later, LA, and then some of these other conferences listed below, NCSM, NCTM, Making Math Moments, and beyond. Also, don't forget the Grit Mini Workshop. Sign up for that and send your students our way for the Grit Academy. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for everything. Have a wonderful night. Please stay safe with all this wild weather and travel. And no matter what, stay gritty. See ya.